starting from population survey, it can be about environmental pollution survey. We are also going to talk about a governmental agency. What are the types of questions that you can try to encounter? It comes with certain terms and conditions. The National Sample Survey Organization. What are the different sources of data? That's one important factor which I want to drive home. And this would be a treasure bank for any researcher. Good morning and welcome to the first session of Chapter 2. We are going to talk about collection of data in economics. Now this chapter is very important for us. Why? Because collection of data will try to make us understand in economics the need for understanding of analyzing how data needs to be put in, what kind of data we need to look in terms of understanding the economic patterns altogether. So moving forward quickly, let's have a look into the topics for today. So the following topics are what we're going to look into. Introduction, we're going to talk about the sources of data, collection of data, questionnaire, which is a very important format that we have to learn in economics, the types of questionnaire. We're also going to talk about the methods of what we are going to prepare. Then we are going to also talk about the modes of data collection, pilot survey, sample survey, which is also important both from the terms of concept as well as from the exam standpoint, census, that's also very important for you, random sampling, non-random sampling, and some of the factors that happen in terms of error. And last but not the least, we are also going to talk about a governmental agency called as the NSSO. So moving forward, let's try to understand what are these factors altogether. Now, the first one, sources of data. What are the different sources of data? Where do you get information on this earth? So you get information from two factors, primary source and the secondary source. So primary data source itself is the most important form. Why? Because that is the first-hand information in terms of data that you get. So it is basically from a questionnaire, or you get it from a photographic collection, you get it from the first-hand information, the first-level interaction with a customer or with a client. Then we have the secondary data source. The secondary data source are the data that is published in books, in journals, in reports, in internet, in any form of data that has already been kept in stored for us. So simply trying to understand here, when I say the word primary data source, that means this data is the first-hand data. This is the first time you're going to do it. It's an original data done by the researcher himself. The secondary data is taken as a help from the books, from the published journals, or the data that is already available. Moving forward. Now, we are going to talk about the collection of data. How are you going to collect the data? If you look here, we have interviews, we have observation, we have the focus group, we have the usage data, and we have the surveys also. So data can be collected in different forms and format. That is very important for us. So you can start collecting data through interviews, personal interview. Let's say you call upon a person, you talk to him, you find out data from him. So interviews become very important. Then observation. How do you observe certain things? When you look into the movement of data, when you look into the factors of how things are happening across your own environment. So observation becomes important. We talk about surveys. There are multiple surveys available in India, starting from population survey, it can be about environmental pollution survey, it can be about lifestyle. Any kind of surveys will also try to provide you a lot amount of information, a lot amount of data. Next, if you start looking here, the usage data, the data that is already used, that's available to us in different forms and format. Focus groups, when I use this word focus groups, that means they are dedicated, specialized groups which are meant for certain specific purpose. So focus groups are also very, very important for us because they try to tell us certain very, very important factors which are needed for the data collection. Moving forward, we will now try to understand questionnaire. What is this questionnaire all about? Now, if you look into the image itself, it's a set of questions that are being designed by the researcher in order to understand a specific problem or a challenge altogether. So what is the importance of questionnaire? It is a well-designed format. You can have 10 questions, you can have 20 questions, or you can even have 30 questions altogether. But all these questions are intended to solve a particular problem in a step-by-step manner. So if a researcher wants to understand a particular solution to a problem, let's say that I want to understand today the lifestyle of people living in a particular city. I want to understand how do they spend their income. I want to understand how do they spend their leisure time. So what do I do is that I create a set of questions, make them try to answer the questions according to my need. So I put in the objectives, I put in the answers, I try to interfere, I try to intervene and find out what exactly the questionnaire is trying to answer to my needs altogether. So questionnaire in a simple format is a structured set of questions that will try to answer a particular objective altogether. Now, moving forward, types of questions. What are the types of questions that you can try to encounter in terms of a questionnaire? Now, you can see characteristics, you can see designs, types, and you can also see examples. So there are many types of questions. Now, when I use the word types of questions, they might be direct question, they might be indirect question, open-ended question, or a closed-ended question. Now let me give you an example for each one of them. What is a closed-ended question? If I'm just going to ask you a question, what is your age? That is a definitive answer. You cannot say maybe. The word for that, the answer for that is a particular number. So closed-ended questions are something which have a definitive answer. Open-ended questions are ones where you are going to give me your opinions or ideas. So for example, if I ask you, how do you feel about today's weather? Now this is an open-ended question. Why? Because you can answer in your own words, in your own set of parameters and ideas. So the types of questions are normally decided based on certain characteristics, based on certain examples, the type how you want to modulate the question paper, the way how you want to put in your design so that it is attractive, it is understandable, and it is achievable in the long run. So the types of questionnaire is something that actually makes you understand the impulse, the need for collecting data to solve a particular problem. This is very, very important for all of us. Why? Because when we get into the data collection, you need to understand every single questionnaire will try to understand or will try to solve the problem in a particular manner. Moving forward. Now, when you look here, you will try to understand the methods of questionnaire preparation. So what are the methods that are normally used in the questionnaire preparation? You can get a computerized questionnaire these days. You can get a mail questionnaire these days. Also, you can also get a telephonic questionnaire and an in-house questionnaire. Now let's try to understand each one of this component. Computer questionnaire is something that is typed in the system or in a desktop. You can use a Google form or any kind of methodology, Excel, Word document, and send it across. So it's a computer generated, it's already a nice structured format altogether. A mail questionnaire is when you mail to the respondents and tell them, please answer this questionnaire under these particular conditions, and you send the mail across to hundreds and thousands of people. This is primarily done using the email ID. Next, the telephonic questionnaire. You call up the respondents, you ask them the question over the telephone, and you get the answers. So we call that as telephonic questionnaire preparation method. In-house questionnaire, when the questionnaire is prepared well within the company, within the organization, within the institute, and it is circulated among the people so that they are able to get the necessary answer, we call them as in-house questionnaire. So these are the different methods of how a questionnaire preparation is done. So you can use a computer one, you can use a telephonic one, you can use a mail questionnaire, or you can use an in-house questionnaire. Now moving forward, we will be also looking into the modes of data collection. What are the different modes of collecting data? You have a personal interview. Now, what is the personal interview altogether? When you call people, when you make them understand that, sir, we want to know certain ideas and opinions from you. So what we tend to do here is that we call people, we make them to attend an interview at a particular place, at a particular time, and we tend to understand, we tend to tabulate the entire results altogether. Using this personal interview method, you will be able to understand and read the person's mind, his idea, his opinion. What does he really know about this subject? Is he interested in going forward? What is his opinion? And each and every result can be tabulated accordingly. Now the second one, if you see, telephonic interview. Sometimes if you feel that the person is not able to attend the interview. Now let's take the example of the current situation. A pandemic like this would not make people to travel from one place to another. So what you can do, you can just call up the person over the telephone and give him the set of questions, which means you can ask him the set of questions and get the answers correspondingly. But in a telephonic interview, the challenge is that you will not be able to see the face of the person, neither you will be able to read the mindset. So what happens there is that you can also see that people might not give you the true result. Sometimes people might get irritated, they might feel that we are not interested in answering the question, so they might just drop the call out. So telephonic interview might not be as interesting, as effective like that of the normal interview that is called as the personal interview altogether. Now if you move forward, you will also try to understand the question patterns like mail survey, internet survey. You would have seen in your daily emails that you might get lot of respondents. This is quite inexpensive method where you send out a mail to everybody, you ask them the questions, you give them a PDF format or a Word format where you send the question and where you tell them these are the questions, these are the things that you have to learn, and this is how you need to take it forward. So this mail survey is a very easy way of promoting your questions and asking the respondents to give you the correct answer. Internet survey, which is the most recent trend, which is the most convenient method altogether. Why? Because if you look at the internet trend, you will be able to understand it's a quick automatic data entry. It is very fast. You can reach people through the social media. You can make them believe about whatever data you need, and at the same time it has got a lot of access because you can quickly send the data across to many people and get the results as fast as possible. Now moving forward, pilot survey. What is a pilot survey? Pilot survey is the first level survey where you take it up in order to find out the real reason or the objective altogether. So you do the first initiative in terms of finding out what is exactly needed. So you take the first initiative, you go to the field, you design a questionnaire, you put it across to a set of correspondents, and you try to find out whether the objective is met or not. So pilot survey is a very, very important method of understanding the people, of understanding what is happening in the scenario altogether. So pilot survey is basically a very simplistic method through which you can make the people believe that what is the first level data collection that you are able to do. This pilot survey is very important in the area of statistics because that will give you a first-hand information, a first-hand picture about whether this problem can be solved, whether there is a feasibility analysis altogether. So pilot survey is a very, very important method that can be used in data collection. Moving forward, you have the census and sample survey. Now, for a large country like India, we have a huge set of population. We have population which runs in crores and crores. So whenever we want to do the census exercise, that exercise itself will take several years to complete, or probably it might take more than a year to complete this entire exercise. So what does we tend to do here is that we tend to understand to take a sample out of the census. That means we will take a section, we will take an appropriate sample, a random base, and we try to understand the census altogether. Now, a sample means that a collection that is being taken either on certain priority basis or on non-priority basis. If I randomly select something, that's called as random sampling. If I'm going to select something based out of certain methods, then we have a different type of methodology or system for it. But on the whole, sample is something that is just taken from the part of the larger group altogether. Now, moving forward. Now, random sampling. For a country like India, where you have a 135 crore population, how will you be able to take any kind of a particular sample? So will you go state-wise, district-wise, or would you go region-wise, or would you start taking the entire country zonal-wise? So if you start asking questions like that, you will not be able to get answers altogether. So that's why we come to this method called as random sampling. On a basis, on any gender basis, randomly we pick out a set of people. That's what you will be able to see in the image. Out of the large set of population that we have, randomly we pick any person from here. All those people are a part of the sample survey, are a part of the census altogether. Now, when you do a random sampling, you might be worried about the factor that do they belong to the same age? Do they belong to the same sector? Do they belong to the same sex? Now, these questions cannot be answered at the first go. In the random sample, we just want to take a sample and we just want to analyze. Then we will start putting clusters, then we will start putting some values, and then we will start understanding how the data is being collected. So random sampling is something that you do it at an instant, that you do it at a go. You are not going to break your head too much in terms of understanding the nuances, in terms of going at the micro level. You just take the population data, you just try to understand, and you just collect it and start moving forward. Non-random sampling. Now this is very, very important because if you start seeing here, random is where you have simple random, stratified, systematic. Of course, there are different methods, but a non-random is judgmental, quota, convenience-based, and a snowball sampling. All this we will try to understand in the coming chapters, in the coming sessions, but then a non-random sampling at this level, what you have to understand is that it comes with certain terms and conditions. Most of the time you would have heard about this word T and C, terms and conditions altogether, which means to say that when you do a non-random sampling, you are not just going to take anything at any given point of time or any instance altogether. You are going to put certain questions, you are going to put certain terms and conditions, certain checkpoints, through which you will be able to understand how things are moving. So when you say judgmental sampling, you're going to judge on certain characteristics. You're going to understand the phenomenon. You're going to see how things are moving. Based on that, you're going to do the judgmental sampling. Then you will be doing the quota sampling based on certain sector. So like this, you have different formats in the non-random sampling. But when you try to understand these concepts deeper in statistics, you will see that the way how you collect the data actually matters for the research. So the more you tend to do the research, the more you will be able to get into the data collection altogether. Now, moving forward. Sampling errors. There are always errors that are bound in any of the research. So what are the sampling errors? The potential sources of errors that happens in taking any sample. Now, for example, there might be times when there is a poor sample taken. There might be times when people did not pay attention to the details. There might be time when we were not able to get the exact data. So there are a lot of errors that will happen in terms of this error in sampling methodology. Why? Because if I am not taking the whole population, if the questionnaire was not properly designed, if the behavioral effects were not measured, so you will try to see that there are a lot of reasons or there are a lot of factors which actually create this kind of error. So for a researcher, he needs to be very careful in the way the questionnaire is designed, the way the questions are asked, what kind of objectives are they met, is he able to understand the people, is he able to go forward with the type of questions that are being exactly printed, what kind of reactions has he measured. All these factors are important in data collection. You cannot just go with a random mindset and believe that all the data that is collected from the people are 100% true. So in order to verify the data that you have collected, you need to see that every time there is a data verification, a validation that happens, and then automatically you start taking it forward. Now, moving forward. We have a very important organization in India called as the NSSO, the National Sample Survey Organization. So this organization spends its entire time, money and energy in terms of collecting the census and data, and they are a very, very important organization which tries to give us a lot of statistical information to us. So you can visit the website of NSSO by searching it out in Google, and you will be able to get insight and try to understand the sample survey of every organization, of every factors that are being mentioned here. The sample survey organization tries to collect information in every possible sector and tries to help us out in the census. This is one of the largest organizations in the world which spends its time in terms of collecting data from different sectors, different districts, different hemispheres of life. So the National Sample Survey Organization is a very, very important tool for every researcher who's trying to understand the statistics in a deeper manner, and this would be a treasure bank for any researcher in economics from which he can get all his sample data as far as possible. So moving forward, we are also going to look into the sampling errors. Now, what are the sampling errors? Data is the most important thing in economics. That's one important factor which I want to drive home. Whenever you look at data, that is something which is very, very crucial. So you cannot avoid the factor that, I can take things lightly and I can again rechange the data. So you need to spend time in understanding the data. Collection of data will be done through different methods. So you can use any kind of method. Like as I told, primary method, secondary method, questionnaire, survey, sample, wherever you want, you can use a method to collect the data. But understanding the sample and the sampling techniques are very, very important. You cannot just take it at a granted or as an advantageous point that I can do things according to me. So it is very, very important that we try to understand the sampling error factors and what are all the things that happen when we try to take any kind of examples. Similarly, the census and the NSSO for India form a very important factor, because when you go through the website, when you go through the data, you will be able to understand how data is collected, how data gets organized, in what ways they have collected the data, in what way they have done the entire sampling. So these are some of the most important factors that we need to keep in mind when we are doing the collection of data. I hope and believe that this particular exercise has been very, very interesting for you today. Now, I would like to thank all of you for joining me today on this wonderful session. I hope and believe this session was interesting, educative, and informative. Until the next session, I would request all of you to stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today.